Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm normally on two screens, so that transition looks a little bit better normally, but it's a bit harder to do on the one screen. Thanks, Dan, for joining as well. So guys, look, some of you have seen me before. So I'm Julian. I'm the partner manager here at Buildxact. So I work with pretty much the best way to describe it is anyone that doesn't have a store effectively from a partner point of view. So, people like Dan at Xact Accounting, master builders, etc. So that's kind of my area of the business. So I speak to a lot of people, hear a lot of thoughts and opinions and everything what's going on in the industry. Have to say that Dan and the Xact Accounting team are amazing, and we're really lucky to have them on to talk through how to protect your profit. So yeah, we obviously all know what's going on in the industry. So yeah, Dan is going to take us through a little bit of that today and how you can safeguard that. So there'll be a little bit about me on a presentation at the start, just to cover off for people that are subscribers, some things you might not be aware of, and the people that maybe aren't using us, again, things you might not be aware of in terms of what Buildxact offers. And then Dan will be doing a deep dive into that. And then obviously the usual Q&A at the end. Just some housekeeping before I bring Dan in, if that's okay with you, mate. The chat box and the Q&A box, I don't mind too much where you want to put your questions and stuff in there, but I'd probably say chat is your best bet, but just because it's a bit easier for us to follow and scroll through. Just make sure that when you are sending a message, you select to everyone and not just to us, just so everyone else can see the conversation that's happening. So yeah, I'll bring in Dan. Dan obviously is with Xact Accounting. My experience before Buildxact, I used to work at MYOB, and my job used to be advising accountants and bookkeepers on what to do. Obviously, hopefully to sign up with MYOB at the time, but really kind of giving them advice on where to take their practice. And one of the key things that I used to always say to people was, you really need to start working on a particular type of customer you want to be servicing. The problem we find of a lot of bookkeepers and accountants out there is that they try and work with too many industries and don't really have a great knowledge of any one of those things. The guys at Xact Accounting are construction trade specific, so you can know that you're guaranteed to get really good advice from these guys. So I'll bring you in, Dan. I think you're on mute at the moment.
Yeah, thanks for that, Julian. And look, really appreciate everyone carving out a little bit of time for us today. I mean, we'll be covering some pretty important ground, but we'll try and keep this relatively light and breezy and fairly conversational too. But look, just a really quick snapshot about Xact Accounting. So we're building construction specialists. We're based here in Queensland, but we do have a national reach as well. We've been doing this for a little while. So we do specialise in QBCC, particularly MFRs and anything building construction related. I'm a little bit different. So I look after the CFO advisory division. Now, what that means is I don't deal with tax at all, to be honest. So if you talk to me about GST or tax or page growth holding, I'll probably poke my eyes out, to be honest. I just want nothing to do with it. My world is around profit. What drives profit? What lifts profit? What should your margin be? How are you going against a budget? When can I come off the tools? All that sort of stuff. So that's my world. So I'm probably what you call a commercial accountant. And then my background there, I've worked in a couple of large businesses, ASX listed. So Bunnings, Cleanway, and a few other bits and pieces, and ended up here at Xact Accounting. So that's a little bit about me. Our services essentially are, you basically rent the brain space of a CFO or I guess like an executive level finance manager. And we work with businesses that sort of turn over between say $2 and $40 million. And we do have quite a few builders in the background as well. So builders that sort of go from 4 or 5 builds a year, including reno guys, up to sort of 70, 80, 90 builds a year plus. That's sort of my world of my space, I guess, as well as the tax and accounting guys over the other side. So that's a little bit of the background behind us. Hopefully I've gotten that all right, Julian.
Perfect. Yeah, I was going to say, guys, as well, definitely use Dan as a resource today and ask your questions. And if you want to reach out after, there'll be a little poll at the end which you can say you want to hear from either Buildxact or Xact Accounting. And yeah, definitely use them. They're a wealth of knowledge in this space.
Yeah, it's a really good point, guys. I mean, look, I'll be talking to you for a little bit. Some will be relevant. I hope they get a lot from it. But particularly at the end, I guess, shoot through those questions. Let's try and get some bang for the buck for you guys individually as well. And look, it's a really important process. If this is engaging, ideas flow around. We'll all get the most out of it. Hopefully, I'll learn a bit more about everyone too. So We'll jump on in if that's okay. So I just want to sort of frame this discussion a little bit before we jump into Buildxact. Just from my side, I guess, from the building construction space, the CFO advisory side. So I see it all the time. Builders swing the hammer really well. They're really good at their job. Really diligent around the quoting process. When they're sort of firing up with 1 or 2 or 3 jobs, they're across it. They can see materials come and go. They know when they're sort of paying this invoice, they've actually signed the materials on site, labor, wages, all the rest of it. But when you sort of go from owning a job, so which might be 1 or 2 bills, to owning a business, and you might have, and I guess the differentiating factor of that is, you might have 2 or 3 on the go. You might sort of escalate to 7, 8, 9, 10 on the go. That's where you sort of come off the tools a little bit. You're trying to manage clients and people and processes in the background. The whirlwind of that can get really dangerous. And that's where, as you sort of come off the tool and you go from owning a job to owning a business, that transition is pretty wide and pretty deep. That's where this whole job costing piece, becomes really important. Just because you're not there on site, you're not sort of seeing the other people working and executing. And it's really important to, I guess, just to have a system and process in place to go, right, well, if I've set out to make this much money, I've been really diligent with my quote. And I see heaps of builders are really good at it. They're really good at the plan. Here's all materials, sub-trades, contracts, all the rest of it. But when the whirlwind starts and invoices and cash go everywhere, the job costing goes out the window. And it's just such a shame to see it not sort of line up. It's similar to like, if you go on a holiday with the family, I guess you have like your budget, you have your roadmap, plotted out your GPS. I'm going to have these meals, I budgeted this amount for places that I'm staying as well. It's just, and then you measure yourself against it. Day 3, I want to be here. Day 5, whatever it happens to be. It's just such a shame not to see that sort of job costing piece line up in the background, and especially the profit you plan to make. You want to try and keep and retain, and I guess defend that profit as well in the background. And we'll talk about that in a fair bit of detail coming up. But before we jump into it, Julie, I might sort of pass back to you, maybe just to talk about when it comes to defending profit. The big piece is obviously making sure you have all your costs lined up. They're accurate. They're not a guess. Exactly what it's going to cost. So I might flick to you first, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I just on your holiday thing there, I don't think I've ever been on a holiday that's come in even close to budget. I think I don't think anyone else has, and if you do, more power to you. But yeah, that's definitely not been my experience. But yeah, guys, as Dan was saying there, obviously, if you have a profit margin figure in your head of when you're starting this a particular job, that profit margin figure is only as good as the estimate and how accurate it was. So you can sort of sit there and have a 20% profit margin, but if your estimate going in from a costing perspective is inaccurate, then that 20% becomes 17, 16, and then you end up on a slippery slope there in terms of what you think your job's going to cost, and then obviously what it finishes up as. So I won't spend too much time on this, but I just kind of want to cover some of the bits off from a Buildxact perspective and sort of how we help that. Obviously, not sitting there, the gun to your head to force you to use Buildxact, but this is kind of how we manage it. So I'll just share my screen quickly so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Hopefully that's coming up for you now. Dan, just give me a thumbs up, make sure you can see that. Cool. So guys, the first thing I want to make you aware, and if you haven't been made aware of this at the moment, we do actually have supplier pricing integration coming in as well into the software. So if you go into integrations here, you can kind of see all the people that we work with. I'll just minimize the Canadian guys there, but obviously see the Bunnings one at the top there. Depending on your location will depend on when you see that Bunnings tile. At the moment, it's available to New South Wales, Vic and Queensland customers. And I believe it's South Australia and WA at the end of next month. So I believe they're going live on the Bunnings Roadshow, Bunnings Expo events in each state. So yeah, that's kind of how that side of the pricing integration works. There's obviously a ton of suppliers in there. Now, the thing that we would recommend you obviously do is integrate with any one of the suppliers that you guys have that are lined up here. So obviously the big ones that we normally see are, your Mitre 10s, your Daltons, your Bunnings, and there's a few others depending on state and location that you're in there. But definitely keep on double checking that. Now, I won't go through the whole thing about how this actually works, but really what you really want to be doing when you're setting up your estimates and your templates is using this pricing integration to help inform templates that you have up and running. So if you're using Buildxact, you probably know what I'm talking about to some degree, but you might have a single story new build. I'll just stop sharing so you guys can see two of us again, but you might have a single story new build, you might have double story, a kitchen reno, a bathroom reno, and let's say you use a timber item from one of the suppliers. The way that system works is that if you use that timber item in those templates, that timber item goes up in price or down in price, or it changes. What will happen, that price will start getting pushed across to all your individual templates. So don't go in and just type them in manually and look at the price sheet. Use the items that's inside those catalogs into your individual templates, and those prices start to update and notify you when they change. Same way if you've got your own list of subby rates in there, you might update your Excel sheet, maybe, I don't know, once a month, once every 2 months, once every 3 months, or just whenever someone changes their price. You can go in and edit that that catalog just by reloading that that Excel sheet back in, and it'll update everything. So if you've got a tiler, for example, on 5 different Buildxact templates, and you've changed that tiler's hourly rate, that will update on all those templates. So really what you're doing is you're starting from a position of, knowing your quote's going to be fairly accurate, and then obviously you just go through and do your due diligence on that. And really what that does is when you put a 20% markup or a 25% markup, I think 25% markup roughly works out as about a 20% margin. But that once that part of the job and the quoting is accurate, okay, well, now I know I need to work towards a 20% margin on my job. And that's kind of where Dan's going to come in and say, well, we know our quote's as accurate as it's going to be. Obviously, the price increases and things are hard to get around at the moment. But we know from the point when we're doing the quote, it's accurate. Maybe we've got 2 weeks for the customer to sign. We try and get that process done as quickly as possible. And then from there, that's kind of where Dan's going to come in and sort of say, well, we've got that, 50, 60, 100 grand, whatever profit margin you set at a percent. And then how do I defend that and make sure that I don't erode that away and getting my visibility on that situation? Because what we often see is people don't quote accurately from the very beginning, which means your costing and your profit margin is never, ever going to be correct. Then you start the job, and then because of delays and because it's not costed correctly and price increase, obviously right now that, I don't need to go into too much detail on that, but we just see people's margin just get eroded and eroded and eroded and eroded to the point that they thought they'd won a high value contract, and their contract is actually, just helping a builder getting by kind of thing. So we really want to help you guys change that. And if you are using us, great. And maybe there's some things that we can shed some light on, and Dan's obviously going to talk to you about how to do that in a bit more detail. If you're not using us, hopefully you can take something from this. Hopefully, you end up using us eventually, but if you don't, hopefully you can still take something out of this to sort of, set your business up for success over the next few years or so. So I'll stop there. I'll let Dan hop in, and we'll be jumping in back and forth, guys, but please feel free at any point in time just to add some questions into the chat, and we'll come to them at the very end, just to stop it getting potentially sidetracked too much. But yeah, feel free to ask whenever something comes into your head.
Yeah, that's a really good wrap, Julian. Look, you're raising a couple of really good points out of that side too. I mean, having those sort of, supply catalogs in the background, prices change all the time, but having those live integrations in there, and just sort of coming back a step as well, profit's a pretty easy equation at the end of the day, or, the theory behind it is, executing it practically can be pretty challenging in today's market, but it's a pretty easy equation. It's literally revenue minus expenses, or direct costs equals your profit. And, a big part of that equation is, that direct cost in the middle. If that's not accurate, because a lot of your contracts will be fixed price. In those rare instances that you do have a cost plus project, hats off to you, because obviously hedges risk pretty nicely there as well. But if you are managing those costs, they get away from you, or you're doing, old school quoting, going, hey, the bathroom, I'm going to charge it, X meters, and just having like a meterage charge in there. You're running a pretty risky game in the background as well. So the more time and effort you put into it, similar to personal training, the more time, energy, and effort you put into it, the more you'll get out of it as well. And, being a builder is risky at the moment. Not trying to generate fear or anything like that either, but if you're not micro measuring your business, you'll run into some pretty serious trouble pretty quick. But if you are micro measuring, there's a bit of money to be made here in the market as well. So without further ado, I will jump into my side.
Dan, just to cover there, Dan, I think Emily just put into the Q&A that the chat wasn't working. So I'm not sure why that was default, that people couldn't talk, but I've just added that back on. So hopefully you guys can hop into the chat now.
Yeah, excellent. All right, cool. Thanks. So I'll just share my screen. So before we kick off, so probably hot tip number one, if you are using Buildxact, and just to Julian's point before as well, I mean, even though we're talking about Buildxact pretty heavily now, I mean, the theories and the learnings and all the rest of it are really important to no matter what system you're using in the background. But, you know, the philosophies that come out of it, I really encourage you to sort of push into your day-to-day or week-to-week agenda. So whether or not you're using Buildxact, and I won't mention any other competitors' names here on the Zoom, you can that and elsewhere, I guess, in sort of day-to-day, week-to-week life as well. So hot tip number one, which I'd highly recommend doing, is just under integrations. You can push through invoices, especially on the expense side, from Buildxact into Xero, and I'd highly recommend setting this up sooner rather than later. So you can do this for Xero, NYB, or QuickBooks, you know, deputies in the background as well for your time and attendance if you use that, but I'd highly recommend linking this up. So there's a couple of help videos online that give you a bit of a hand with this. Yeah, but I'd highly recommend sort of, you know, eliminating that double entry, you know, putting it once in a Xero, once in a Buildxact, and spend the time making this up. So there is a whole video on the Buildxact website to give you guys a hand with that. So that's hot tip number one. Now, a couple of assumptions here in the background too. Look, I'm not a builder. I haven't swung the hammer for a while. If it is, you know, it's little projects in the background. So I won't be talking too much around how you build the quote up, how you do your where I sort of fire up on the CFO advisory sections. Look, you have your plan, and I sort of help you link where your actual money's going, and I guess how you're spending and all your spending patterns. You know, I guess tracking against that budget, tracking against that plan, tracking against that quote, and going, am I on track? Yes or no? And you know, hey, I wanted to make 50 grand or 100 grand out of this project. Am I on track? Because the risk is with builders, you know, some of these projects can go for 6, 9, 12, 18 months. There's no reason why you should get to the end of the project, you know, once the dust settles and go, geez, I hope I made some money. There's no reason why you can't track that as you go. And all the big guys do it, all of them, every single one does it. You know, they sort of do their monthly cut off, you know, how's my job costing going, where I'm under and over, where can I sort of pour back money? And I'll go into a couple of live examples shortly, but all the big guys do it as well. And it's just a really good process to get into. So what you're looking at here, again, I won't touch on the estimates of the leads, but this is a dummy company that we have set up in the background that I do for a couple of talks, a few other bits and pieces as well. And I'm sort of going to be really, I'll be going really deep with this J1003 job, but this build has 3 jobs on the go, and I'll sort of just jump straight into it, if that's all right. So what we're looking at in this screen currently is, this is the job. So it's been flipped across from a quote to a job. These are all the sub trades here in the background as well. You pop this open here as an example. All this is sort of free text and entered in. Yeah, so with the preliminaries, there's some home warranty insurance stuff. There's a couple of swims. And when you sort of work left to right, you go, right, well, for the QBCC home warranty, and again, this is all fully customizable, you know, how you sort of build your quotes up. But we go, right, for the QBCC home warranty insurance, for example, I'm estimating I'm going to spend $6,556 on this. That's what you're planning to spend. And that number is really critical because that, you know, because that is part of your plan and roadmap. Now, I'll touch into a couple of examples later, a little bit later on, but in this instance here, you know, this is what I budgeted to spend. And this entry here is actually coming at $7,000. So you see here clearly straight away, we have an overspend almost immediately of $443, you know, which doesn't sound like much, but when you do line up a few of these, it does chip away the profit that you are trying to protect. So I'll just come out of this first, and I'll just talk about this window in a little bit more detail as well. So in the background here, so for this job, for this J1003, the income that we're going to be billing on this project is $542,044, and that's ex-GST. So that's what you're looking at here. All the claims are sort of loaded out here as well. The little up arrow means it's been synced to the accounting system, which I'll talk on a little bit later, but all the income's been mapped. Yes.
Dan, sorry to cut in there, mate. A couple of people have mentioned that there's a bit of buffering on your sound. It happened to me once or twice, but I think it might be happening to others a bit more. It might be worth just for a minute if we both turn our videos off. If everyone's okay with that, just because I think maybe that the video sometimes can slow the internet stuff down. Yeah, Kat has just said there that, yeah, she's experiencing the same thing. So we'll both turn our videos off, guys. So sorry we're not talking like directly at you, but I think it's probably going to be good for the overall quality of the audio. You should be good to go now, Dan.
Yeah, thanks. Have you guys still got me?
Yeah, we've got you, yeah.
Yeah, okay, excellent. All right. So, yeah, I mean, just keep dropping comments in there, guys. We're still fluttering a little bit. I'll see what else I can do, or maybe link up to the phone or something. But in the background here, we have our plan, we have our quote, and we're due to bill out $542,000 for this project. So, and then when you sort of change gears and go, right, well, this is the income that's coming in, ex-GST. There's no variation income, so this has been a really clean build in the background, for this example. When you go, right, well, that's my income, where are my costs sitting? So down the bottom left-hand corner here, we're estimating that we're going to spend $421,450. So one minus the other is $120,000 worth of profit that you're trying to defend and retain, and obviously pay yourself a wage so you can look after your family as well. So income minus expenses, we're trying to defend $120,000 here in the background. I'll probably leave the estimates for this example, but that's what we're trying to get to the end. So we have our plan, we have our map, and away we go. So I'll push on down to windows and doors, because I'll probably spend a little bit of time here because on the material side. But as you can see here, the first column here is your estimate. The next column over here is your actuals, and I'll pop this out again. Your estimate, these two numbers match. Here's your actuals, and this is your overspend or underspend. Just be a little bit careful when you analyze this, because this here only just does the variance to cost buckets. And what I mean by that is, if you add up these two lines here, for the preliminaries, we're saying we're due to spend $7,056. When you go to your actuals, this here is the sum of these two entries here, which is $7,550. And then this here goes, right, well, one minus the other gives you your variance. Just be really careful looking at this number in Buildxact as well, because say this entry wasn't in here, or, someone had sent you an invoice, or, something happened. This entry up here would just be saying $443 variance. It doesn't show you what's still yet to spend, or I guess yet to leave your bank account in the background. So just be really careful to sort of relying on this number. I mean, Buildxact has great functionality with building out the quote and the takeoff, the data capture, and all sorts of other bits and pieces. But just be really careful if you don't pop these out and look at them one by one to make sure that, all the line entries have been received in the background as well. This one's here, is a bit of a clean example, but just be really careful looking at that and going, oh, look, I've only got $2,000 to spend. Because if one of these larger items had been entered in, that number will get bigger. So that there isn't your variance to your quota, your budget. It's literally just estimate minus your cost actual. So be really, really careful around that one where you can. So this job is pretty much just about done. There's entries all over the place as well. I just want to talk about the defend your profit piece here pretty heavily too. And then just before we get going, I just want to talk about best practice of entering invoices into the system as well. So I've touched on it before, but this will be a whole separate conversation. There's plenty of videos online to give you a bit of a hand. But if you're not entering your invoices as they come in, so you've done all this work getting your quote really accurate, bucket loads of detail, it's really important when the invoice comes in that you take the time and try and find where that invoice is in your overall quote as well. Because if you don't have that invoice entered in, how are you going to know that you're on track, off track? And when you have sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 of these jobs on the go, plus a couple of renos, you lose granularity, sight on your business and on your profit pretty quickly. So every single direct cost invoice that does come in, make sure you do take the time to go, right, this invoice that was received here, and I'll go into in a second, was for this estimate. And I can see now that I was only due to spend $21,000 here. This invoice is coming to 32. Holy moly, we need to pull that apart. What's going on? So just quickly for best practice for entering invoices, it's a bit of an about face, but there is a whole sort of help video on this on the Buildxact website as well. But this is, I'll go a level deeper too. So this here, so when you do go to receive the invoice in, so I'll come back a step. So when you do go to receive the invoice in, you will get this window that does pop up here. So I'm sort of going straight to the end, guys, sorry, but you get this with that, this invoice that pops in here, and some of the data entry fields are very, very similar to Xero and MYOB. Here's your invoice reference number. That's the date of the original invoice. And you do all your receipts, the materials down the bottom. And because you've sort of looked up to find where the invoice is sitting, you get a really good descriptor here. So you can pressure test your original purchase order, or I guess your original plan against what you have received in the invoice. And you can do all your receiving through here and go, yep, save and submit. This little arrow up here means it has gone across your accounting software as well. So a Buildxact doesn't have like an accounts payable module in it, but it will push across the invoice ready for your bookkeeper or better half to process those invoices when they fall due as well. So you can see here, this invoice has been pushed across the accounting system. And then from there, it's really important that you do put in lots of detail as well. You can put down additional notes for yourself, whatever it happens to be. And then once that invoice is fully received into the system too, you can then jump out and go, right, well, I know there's no more invoices coming. I was due to spend $21,000 here. It's landed at 32. We got a 10 grand overspend. Now, the whole piece around protect your profit is the feedback loop. So every single invoice that comes in, and look, particularly when I'm doing the CFO advisory piece or I'm giving coaching advice to, I guess, builders I deal with or talk to, my view is I don't really care at all, to be honest, what you've spent if you come on budget. What I care about is when you're overspending or underspending, tearing up money or, sort of going under or below this, that's the bit I care about, and the why. Why has it happened? What's going on? So in this example here for aluminium windows and doors, the builder's gone away and had a bit of a look. We know what's going on with steel in the background, aluminium. And there's a nice little notes function out to the side here. So when you get to the end of the job, you can unpack it, but you can just double click in this field, write yourself a little note, and you go, right, well, I know what's going on in the background there. I'm satisfied with what's going on. That's not pretty, but at least I know what's sort of going on in the background there as well. It's really important that you do sort of go through this too. When the invoice does come in from the supplier, that you sort of go through in a lot of detail. It's really important to line up the invoice too. Otherwise, if you're not lining these up, you sort of lose transparency in your business pretty quickly. And there's some pretty decent numbers that leave your business as well. I mean, I know I'm sort of preaching to the choir here a little bit, but it's, this process is absolutely critical. Apart from WIP, job costing is equally up there as well. So the important piece when you are sort of pulling this apart is you spend all this time with the quote getting this right, and when these invoices do start coming in from suppliers for materials, where it happens to be, just make sure you go through where there is a huge variance. Go, hey, why is there such a big variance? So make sure you check the supplier's original quote. Is it in scope? Are they substituted a different products? Or what might have happened is that you might have had a project manager, had a call from a client saying, hey, can I get this variation? In which case you push through a higher quality product in the background. So is there room for a variation or a variation charge to the client as well? Just make sure that you are tracking this as much as you can, because in this instance here, we've gone, well, look, we couldn't hold down our quote. I guess our quota price for too long. Aluminium prices have gone up. So you're no longer making $120,000, which is income minus costs. We've now burnt 10 grand. So now we're only going to make 110,000. So as you can see, that money can evaporate pretty quickly in the background. And it's really important just to wrap your head around why and what's going on. So whether it's your bookkeeper processing entries in here or someone else or a better half, it's really important to look at this probably at a minimum weekly, at the end of the week or start of the week, and just work out why and what has gone on in the background as well. And it's really important to line these two up. The other side I wanted to have a bit of a look at this as well when you do talk about defending your profit, is particularly subcontractors. Now, I do have a fair few conversations with builders around this, and all the sub-trades, subcontractors are obviously feeling the pinch and feeling the squeeze in the background as well. But it's just really important to sort of keep them accountable too. I mean, your revenue is fixed generally with your clients, and your costs are in fluctuation, and then every dollar that does come in above and beyond what you're planning to spend absolutely smashes your profit and smashes your take home. So we're only talking about profit here in the context of gross margin, because even though you've made, or you plan to make $120,000, you still got to pay for overheads out of this, and then you probably still got to pay for yourself as well. So every dollar that bleeds out of this really squashes down on that $120,000 profit in this instance that you're trying to defend too. So you just have to be really careful that you sort of micro-measuring this all the time. So in this example here, an invoice has come in, I guess for a set of plumbing work, we're due to spend $3,000 here. The actual invoice is coming at $5,000. What's going on? So we haven't got any notes here in the background, but just pieces I'd really try and encourage you to stay across here is just challenging any dollar that is above the $3,000 for any line, or I guess any instance in Buildxact. You could be using another piece of software as well. You really want to micro measure where there's any red ink, especially when you start to deviate from the plan as well. So things I go back and challenge, I guess, subcontractors about is, was there something that happened on site possibly to the site supervisor, advise them to do some additional work that was a little bit outside scope, or was there anything in there that you didn't pre-okay beforehand? Was there a weather delay? Or the other big one I sort of see all the time as well, when a subcontractor goes out and they have to do rectification works, they flick through an invoice for those works as well, which is not something you've agreed to. So you need to keep an eye on as well. So I recently rolled out this process with a new client that signed with us actually, and the bookkeeper I was talking to, when she was micro measuring this instead of shoving the invoice through zero and paying it, she said that probably about 1 in 5 or 1 or 6 subcontractor invoices had some pretty huge variations as they came through in the background. And more often than not, when she picked up the phone and talked to them, they apologized and said, "Oh, sorry, I'll issue a new one." But for the 1 or 2 that sort of slipped through and said, "No, no," and they started pushing back and negotiating, this is out of scope, whatever it is. It just sort of drives that accountability piece further and further. And obviously you're defending that profit piece a little bit more as well. So just on that, again, just go really deep, just try and understand the whys to what's going on in the background. Are there any variations that should have popped up? And just sort of keep, I guess, your materials guys and I guess your subcontractors really accountable, I guess, around this. And just make sure for every invoice you do receive, especially on the direct cost side, so disregard overheads, but particularly on the direct cost sides, that you do try and align the invoice up to the actual as well. And even if it's a couple of dollars over, just make sure you spend the time and pull it apart, because at the end of the day, that's coming out of your pocket. The revenue is fixed and the costs are fairly variable, unless you can sort of do I guess cost plus contracts or PS or wherever it happens to be. Just make sure you are micro measuring that in the background as well. Any
Dan,
other sort of
just on that, Dan, while I've got you there, so it's a bit harder to interrupt when there's no camera on because you can't see me looking at to speak. But one of the things that when I speak to builders, I'm doing events and things like that, a lot of the issue that people have with doing this is time in their business to do it. Now, granted, it's a lot harder to do when you're not using, a software. When you're doing it manually, it's near on impossible to manage this as detailed as this level. But kind of what advice would you say to people that, are just struggling with time to do it? Like, what kind of impact is not doing this having on, potentially their business?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Julian. I mean, time is the hardest, and let me sort of get into this gear here. I use the philosophy of either working in the business versus working on the business. And look, it's really easy to work in the business. Fires pop up, your phone goes off all the time. Someone calls in sick. You sort of do what you do to grind through. But the working on your business, and again, you set out this really, really detailed quote. I see it all the time. Heaps of detail and thought that goes into it. But if you don't take the time to unpack this or make sure your systems and processes are working in the background. So what I mean by that is that you might be half on the tools, half elsewhere, but you might have a bookkeeper that does the transactions for your project manager. Just making sure that system and process does work in the background, because I know materials go up all the time. Subcontractors push through the invoices, or they might get directed to do something different on site. The money that you're trying to make can evaporate pretty quickly, and there's some decent money that flows through your businesses. 10, 20, 30, 40K hits at a time, depending if it's frame of truss or a pool or whatever it is. You probably can evaporate pretty quickly as well. And look, subcontractors will be feeling the pinch at the moment, and the guys that are in the materials in for you. But if you're not following this process here, you can double pay invoices, or someone will send you for an invoice and higher than what they promised. It's really important just to micro measure this all the time, and really take the time out for it. Even if it's weekly, or on a Saturday morning, get up a little bit early, spend 2 or 3 hours on it before the family gets up, and go, right, am I really across this? Especially this number down the bottom right hand corner too. I mean, this is just a cost variance down the bottom, but you just make sure you understand that number really well. Particularly these actuals down the bottom, because at the end of the day, as you can see here, we estimated to spend $421,000, but the actual cost as of today is sitting at $482. So you've chewed up $61,000 a year profit as of today and right now, and there could be a variety of reasons for that. So hopefully I've answered that one all right, Julian.
Yeah, no, that was great, mate. Yeah, I think also as well, it's worth noting that the earlier this information, the more you can do on the project to try and minimize the impact of that 1 or 2 or multiple overruns. Whereas having no knowledge of it whatsoever is really tough. I know a guy who actually trains people on Buildxact in Melbourne, and I think he's focusing more on training than the building side of it now. But when he was running it, he effectively said he let his accounts people take care of paying all of this. And as soon as he saw any red whatsoever, he delved like straight into it. That was his process. So he managed to delegate a lot of those tasks to other people in his business. So he wasn't running around trying to do all that. But as soon as he noticed a red pop up, that's where he really started to delve into it. So that might be something people can adopt as well.
Yeah, no, that's great, Julian. Look, the quote I see again. I don't mean to labour the point too much, but I see the quoting process, really well thought out. It's just such a shame not to link the two. Then you at least get some transparency as what's going on in your business, not 9 months, 12 months after the build's done and going, well, geez, I hope I've made some money out of it. Yeah, you definitely need some transparency around it. So the takeaways out of this piece, I guess, is, just make sure you are lining up those invoices in the background, because you're not taking the time to line them up. You'll have no idea as to what's going on. And, just make sure that, I guess the quote, the plan, the budget you do set out, that you are on track and you are making the money you're hoping to make as well. And then if it is showing up in the red, why is it? Just go why, and just try and get to the root cause of it. I'll just zoom out of this a little bit as well, because when you do interpret this page, and I just want to just chuck out a piece of warning around this one. So I touched on it before. We have our total costs down the bottom. When you come across to the actual costs down the bottom here, this is just total costs. So this isn't actual versus budget or anything like that at all, because when you go your estimate minus your actual cost to date, so all this data is live, or at least for this instance, we're going, oh geez, we've overspent $61,000. Now, it gets a little bit worse than that, because this isn't a variance of budget. This is literally going, well, this is your estimate. This is your total cost. We've overspent $61,000. And look, I hate to say it for this builder's instance, but it gets worse than that. And what I mean by that is that we can sort of see all these positives and negatives all over the place, because it does give you like a little summary as to what's going on. But when you come down to the pool, for example, you can see, well, there's 31,000 here, but there's 2 zeros sitting here. And what that means is that the pool works hasn't even commenced yet. So we're planning to spend $28,000 and $3,000 here. So all up, the pool and the hard landscape is about 30 odd grand, but we've had no invoice come in for that yet. So that number there is actually going to get worse, because you haven't actually received anything for this yet. So this isn't a variance of budget. This is just a total cost bucket, total estimate, and this number is going to get worse. So you can see pretty quickly with that $120,000 that you set out to defend, evaporates pretty quickly once that invoice comes in. And if you do pop a couple of these open as well, and you are missing line items here and there, this will change that number pretty radically, but it'll also give you a bit of a false positive as to what's going on around this cost entry here too. So Buildxact does an amazing job mapping and planning out and takeoffs and all the rest of it, but just be a little bit careful around assuming that's a variance of budget number. Because as you can see here, we've got at least another 32 grand coming in there for the swimming pool. And there's another entry here for the external cladding that hasn't come in. So you might have a supply that's dragging the chain on the invoice a little bit, or they haven't sent it to you, or it's been lost in an email. So that number is actually going to get a fair bit worse in this instance, which is a bit of a shame overall. But again, if you're not entering the invoices in, you'll have no idea where that number's sitting, and you can start to get some pretty serious wobble in your business pretty quickly if you're not micro measuring all these moving parts. So on that, that's probably a bit of a wrap for the Buildxact side, but I want to probably just go a level deep with, well, that number. So if you turn around to me and said, hey, Dan, well, look, that number there is okay for a total cost, but how do I know what's still yet to spend? Where is the bottom of the barrel here? Because I've got sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 of these on the go. I haven't got the time to go, right, well, can I jump into these one by one? Is there something else that give me a bit of a hand? So I'm excited to show you guys a tool that we have been working on in the background, which is Xact Analytics. So Julian, am I okay just to push straight on into this one?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just to maybe kind of delve in a little bit there. I know there are some questions stuff which we'll come into in the end. But yeah, guys, with the Buildxact platform, obviously it makes it easier for you to job costs and track your costs on the job. And obviously Dan's going to go through what his team at Xact Accounting do, and just take that in a little bit more detail. So this is kind of, I guess where Buildxact to some extent finishes, and then Xact Accounting are going to take it, one step further.
Yeah, thanks for that, Julian. So just quickly, because I know everyone is pretty busy, and again, I really appreciate the time on the phone. So from my view, especially when I'm coaching clients, or, we're sort of doing our end of month meetings with them, and we're sort of running through, what's going on in the business during the day, week, month, year, whatever it happens to be. Buildxact's really, really good at, the takeoffs and the estimating, and I guess all the upstream stuff is incredible with what they've done there, to sort of build out your plan, build out your quote, your schedule of works, etc. Now, when you sort of come a bit further downstream, as you've seen when you pop open each of those windows, each of those items, you have to sort of jump in and out, in and out. And look, it gives you a good view as to what you spent to date. But if you remember my comment earlier, look, I don't really care what you spent to date, especially if you come in on the plan. What I care about is what you're cooking, or the cash that you're tearing up above and beyond your budget. So if you were due to spend 10 grand on a fence and it's coming at 12, well, you just cooked 2 grand of your profit that you were hoping to make at the end of the day. But conversely, the opposite's true too. If you're due to spend 10, you added some fat in there as well, and the invoice is coming at 8, well, you've gained 2K worth of profit. So obviously high fives and hugs from there. So this dashboard here, I mean, we spent a lot of time working on it. I've got a full-time developer on it in the background as well. And this is an alpha stage currently too. And the philosophy it is that this gives, we have a pretty decent data warehouse in the background, but this gives a bit of a commercial lens into your business. So, this is I guess a pretty basic bit of software, but a lot of work's gone into the back of it as well. And look, the guys over at Buildxact and Julian too have been instrumental in helping us put this together, because obviously they have to open up Buildxact to us to sort of pull out the data. But this here really is, a pretty heavy duty commercial tool to keep into your business as well. So the way this is split is that there's a section here on Xero, and this is tailored towards, builders and sub trades. I won't go into the Xero section today, but I'll just touch on the Buildxact side as well. So we've been testing this with a lot of builders. We are starting to push this out. We've shown us a couple of roadshows, and look, I'm really excited to be able to demo this to you guys and then sort of show you a little bit about what's going on. So I will go to, sorry, I've gone to the wrong one, the background. Sorry guys, bear with me. So I'll go to the overall performance first. So we've gone pretty heavy with the whole protect your profit piece. And what we have here is that this builder has 3 jobs in the go. So J1003, 1004, and 1005. And this data updates every 6 hours in the background as well. So if you have your bookkeeper or better half or whoever is smashing data in, he gets to the end of the day, you can have a peek to your business's overall performance, or particularly your live jobs on the go as well, as to what they've gone, what's happened during the day as well. So just working left to right here. So for J1003, we touched on this before when we did the income minus expenses. We're planning to make $120,000 out of this job here. Now, the next column to the right, this is probably the money spinner in the background, the numbers you probably care about the most in the background. This isn't what you've spent, this is what you've cooked. So if that fence, that you plan to spend 10 grand on and it's coming at 12, $2,000 is going to drop in here. So the planned profit or projected profit that is sitting on this project now is only sitting at $19,000 as of right now. And this data does get updated every 6 hours, guys, too. So we're planning to make 22% GP. We're now seeing at 3.6%. So just left to right, this is the quote of the budget, the costs that have been smashed in by your bookkeeper or yourself, whoever it is. We're cooking 101,000. We're only making 19 grand profit here today, and there's still invoices yet to come. And it's the same for J1004. We're planning to make 160. It's just starting to cook, so it's still got a fair bit of profit in there. And then J1005, we're planning to make 182. And we've actually gained profit here. So our profit's actually gone up, either through contingencies or a subcontractor sharpen the pencil a little bit for you, or whatever it happens to be. So your profit's actually gone up to 187,000. And then just to the right, this just gives you a bit of a visual as to what's going on. And then working left to right, this is how much profit you're planning to make. This has gone up by 5 grand profit. This has dropped down by 3K. This one here, holy dooly, we need to pull this one apart pretty quickly, which is exactly what we'll do now. So just coming out a step, we then go into the detail, which is this tab here, Buildxact. And bear with me, there'll be a bit of data on this page, but I'll sort of take you guys through a quick bit of the journey anyway, and why this tab's so important to look at. So this dashboard is pretty portable. You can sort of bring up any jobs pretty quickly. It's all linked to Buildxact in Xero. And then what you're looking at here, we're going to deep dive on this J1 below, this J1003 job and go, what's going on with that $100,000 overspend. So what you're looking at here is that in the top left-hand corner here, this is your plan or this is your quote. So we're planning to bill out $542,000 for the job. Our costing, to build the project's 421, and then there's that $120,000 I keep talking about over and over. So revenue minus expenses, 120,000. We're planning to make 120 grand or 22% GP. There's no variations. That's the plan. Now, if we change gears a little bit, go to the right-hand side, this here gives you a bit of a micro cash flow as to what this job's doing. And I see builders do this all the time. They sort of grab their cash balance, pull out the coaster right on the back and go, look, I've still got to build this for this job, and I've got these costs coming out. This here gives you almost a bit of a live micro cash flow as to what's going on for this job in the background. So just working top to bottom, cash inflows here. So we've billed the full $542,000 to the client already. So there's nothing left to bill now at all. So the tank's been emptied. So all the cash has been kicked out. The next critical piece, or I guess where the money sits is this section here, and it's absolutely critical when you're sort of looking at this dashboard. So we talked about before that we're due to spend $421,000 on this job. We've actually spent $477,000 on this job as of right now today. So one minus the other, you go, oh geez, I hope that's it. Especially you as a builder, and if you haven't got a tight handle on your money and your finances, geez, I hope that's everything. And if you don't have a tight handle on your purchase orders or, invoices still yet to come in, you want to look at this, clench and hope, and that's it. Now, where this gets a little bit worse is that out of that $477,000 you spent on this project, $100,000 of that is an overspend, which is pretty astronomical in the background. And where you get visibility on this is that if you go to this right-hand window over here, this here mirrors Buildxact, and you can see here that preliminaries are here. Here's your estimate. Here's your actual. There are your variances. So all these little red items here show you what the overspends are, and you can skim down this list pretty quickly, see what's going on, and go right. What's happened. I've got a 12 grand overspend here. What's going on? So the sum of this column, 101, tells you what your overspend is. So that's not what you've spent. That's what you've cooked. So when you go, right, well, I was due to make 120 grand in profit. I've overspent 100. I've still got to spend $44,000. So it also gives you transparency on what you still got to spend. So similar to the swimming pool before, but as long as that comes in on budget, that number's not going to get worse. So this is the difference with Buildxact when you sort of run down. It's really good at sort of showing you your cost buckets, but it doesn't show you how your profit is tracking overall. And then when you fast forward over here to the left, this is the profit protection piece. You're going, well, I was due to spend 120. I've overspent 101,000, and my projected profit as of right now is sitting at 19 grand. So even though you've got to spend another $31,000 here on the pool, as long as you're on the plan on the budget, that number's not going to get worse, and your profit is still going to sit at $19,000. So hopefully you guys can see how important this piece is, and it gives you that sort of really quick snapshot as to how the job's going, and you can bring it up by some jobs, all jobs, and everything updates as well. So it's all pretty portable. It gives you cash flow of your current projects on the go, what you still got to invoice, costs you have to spend, overspends, etc., etc. So look, that's the high-level overview of Xact Analytics, from my side. So I've been working on this for about 6 months now. A fair bit of brain power's gone into it, and blood, sweat, and tears. So the guys over at Buildxact have inputted into this pretty heavily. But yeah, look, I mean, if you are short on time, don't have the time to go through your jobs one by one. It is a really critical tool, or I guess an easier tool where you can jump into it, have an overview as to your overall business performance at a snapshot, and go, right, well, this is where I'm starting to cook money. And ideally, you probably start to look at this even daily, because you can get this on your phone, your laptop, tablet, whatever it happens to be. So when you roll out of bed the next day and your bookkeeper smashed in some numbers, hopefully that number gets a little bit better. So you almost want this, I guess this high level information available to you almost at any time as well. So we're really excited with this one. We're starting to present this to a fair few builders, sort of one-on-one at the moment. And yeah, look, hopefully it has piqued the interest a little bit. I'll talk about how you can register your interest for this one, but I probably wouldn't mind us wrapping up just with some hot tips, just summarizing what we have gone over, if that's okay. So if you only walk away with a handful of items out of this chat before we get into the Q&A, this is what I'd recommend in the background. But before I push on, Julian, anything further from your end?
No, that's for me. Yeah, mate. Go into the hot tips, then we'll dive into the questions. But yeah, obviously, guys, this really just bridges the gap to the things that the people that want to take, their data and their job costing, that extra step, especially for those that are looking at growing their business. Xact Accounting is obviously great, and obviously just to confirm, I realized I didn't say this earlier on. Xact Accounting and Buildxact, there's no direct direct relationship other than just being working together and being partners. But yeah, we're not owned by the same companies or anything like that. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, no. There's no direct ownership or any conflicts of interest to declare, I don't think, Julian.
Yeah.
So just the hot tips to wrap. I'll just click through this quickly. Just make sure you take the time to link up your Xero and MYOB file to Buildxact. I mean, if you're not entering the invoices into Buildxact, you won't see how you're progressing against a quote or the job, or you'll have paperwork or purchase orders all over the place. So I'd probably recommend pretty quickly going away and just linking up your Xero, Maya, QuickBooks, whatever it is, to Buildxact. So that way you're entering the invoice once in the Buildxact, and then that does push through into your accounting system as well. And then you can also pull out job costing out of Xero too, because your two systems reconcile and match. Make sure you do take the time just to link up your creditor invoices to the correct line item in Buildxact. So, with that example with the windows, you get an invoice in, just take the time to line it up, and then you can analyze, whether you're up or down or, sideways on it. It's such a critical piece of the job costing. So definitely make sure you do have that admin hygiene in the background there. Probably a really hot tip, and this is actually probably a really good one, inputted by Julian as well, but I'm starting to see this more and more. Don't build your quote room by room. Don't do your bedroom 1, 2, 3, kitchen, etc. Try and build up your quote by subtrade, because once the invoices start coming in, and look, you probably use one plumber for, I guess like the ensuite and the kitchen and all the rest of it. You can track those costs a lot easier as well, and you sort of track it by engagement of the subtrade too. So if you are building up your quotes, try and do them by subtrade, not room by room. Yeah, definitely just try and spend some time around that. The other final piece as well is materiality. So you might turn around and say, "Hey Dan, with all my Bunnings expenses, where do I code those? Or do I put a lot of time to try and track 20, 40, 50 bucks here and there?" We don't want you guys sort of spending heaps of time burning, I guess, on admin and stuff that's not going to add value or insights or impact. So just be a bit careful around materiality and sort of chasing $10, $20, $50. But in saying that too, don't be afraid to sort of put in all your quotes as well. Have like a consumable bucket down the bottom to like your Bunnings trips and your few other bits and pieces. And again, Bunnings are starting to get live links into Buildxact as well, so it makes the process even easier. Just have that consumable bucket down the bottom, because if you have one of the guys or girls go, "Hey, can I pick up a couple of lengths of timber?" They disappear for 30, 45 minutes one way, spend a bit of time at Bunnings, pick up your timber, come back, it's an hour and a half of wages plus materials. You still want to try and capture a lot of that if you can by job, because if they add up pretty quickly, or you see a lot of those transactions, you go, "Oh, hang on, we haven't really planned for this very well. Why are we doing so much stop and start? Is it around our ordering? Is it around our scheduling? What process there is not working?" Finally, spend the time to micromeasure your business. And I can't, it's not micromanage. Micromeasure is probably the word that I like. Just take the time on it. And, look, it's so important to work on your business. And look, that's what CFO Advisory does. Sort of pull business owners aside, produce like an end of month pack, hey, what do the numbers all mean? Just spend your time micromeasuring. WIP's super important. And we've done another talk on this elsewhere, but the job costing piece is also critical to make sure you keep out of hot water and you continue to trade into the future. So I mean another sort of hot tip with that, something I do personally here over at Xact Accounting, just to sort of share another story, is Monday to Friday is working in the business with clients and phone calls and all the rest of it, and probably every Saturday or every second Saturday at the latest, I sort of carve out 2 or 3 hours in the morning just to work on the business. So I don't open emails. I sort of think about strategy, or it might be job costing for a client or a large project work I'm working, a large project piece I'm working on. Just make sure you build some disciplines around that too. Because if you're not looking at it, no one else probably is, and they're probably not understanding it either. And then just finally, as a bit of a wrap before we go to Q&A, and please shoot these across, guys. Definitely make the most of the time while Julian and I are on here. This is our landing page for the Xact Analytics dashboard I showed you just before. So if you are interested in booking a one-on-one chat with me, because I do try and do these one-on-one because you haven't sort of mass pushed this out yet, just grab out your phone and scan that QR code in the bottom left-hand corner. Jot down your details onto a waitlist form, and I'll reach out to each of you individually one-on-one and sort of take you through a bit more of a detailed demo, especially on the P&L side, and probably a level deep on the Buildxact side too.
Hey Dan, I can't see the QR code.
You can't see the QR code?
No, I'm not sure. Maybe it's because of my Zoom window is, over it. I don't know, but yeah. Oh, there we go. Now we can see it.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah, got it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sinaj. I don't know why we're having a couple of technical difficulties, but apologies for that and everyone on the call. So look, reach out, jot down your details, or reach out to you one-on-one. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn, my email's here, reach out with any questions that you have too. And look, really appreciate you guys taking the time out to go through this journey. I mean, even if you don't use Buildxact, even though it's an amazing piece of software, hopefully you pull out a bit of, a few hygiene practices and apply this internally as well, whether it's yourself or you delegate this out to other people if the business is a bit larger. But I can't stress how critical this process is, especially in the current market. I mean, costs keep on going up. You as a middle person between the client, your materials and subcontractors, why should you be the one to pay for it? And that's a bit of a wrap from my end. I'll stop sharing.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. We might be able to turn our video on and just there we go. Let's turn mine on as well. Awesome. It's quite bright now. Mate, thanks for that. That was awesome. Obviously, guys, Dan covered a lot about Buildxact there. I don't want to sort of make this a thing where you feel that we're saying you absolutely have to use Buildxact to get any of this information out. Like the principles are all there. It's just kind of generally what we find is that people just don't do this stuff manually because it is very, very time consuming. But, if you're absolutely against using us for whatever reason, try and get some kind of rolled up number to what's happening on your projects, because most people can't even tell us the profit margin of the total job, let alone individual areas, which just kind of sets you up with issues kind of moving forward if there's any blowouts in the job or the estimate isn't correct. So thanks, Dan, I really appreciate that. We're going to jump into the Q&A section now, but I thought what I might do is, just in case people don't have questions and they kind of maybe wanted to let us know if you want to hear from either myself or Dan. I thought I'd put up a poll now. So for those of you that don't have questions, hopefully you guys can see that at the moment coming up on your screen to say whether you want to hear from us or from Xact Accounting. So obviously with Buildxact, if you're a current user of the system, guys, feel free at any point in time, you can go into your Buildxact software. There's a kind of like a chat with us button. You can actually book out a chat with our tech team or our customer success team. So customer success are the ones that are going to teach you how to use new parts of the software. The tech team are obviously if you've got a bug or an error message or something isn't working. So they're the two different teams. But please make sure you use that. I do a ton of events with Buildxact. I've got a Master Builders Queensland one today, which I might be seeing you, Dan, at that one maybe?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. I think so.
I think Mick, your fearless leader, is the one presenting. But
yes.
I see people, as soon as I'm at these events, everyone comes up to me and says, oh, I need help doing this. And I'm like, book the time and don't wait for me to come to visit the entire country. So definitely get in the habit of doing that. If there's anything here that you're not sure on from a Buildxact perspective, definitely use us. It's all free, and you can book time in advance to have a chat with someone, and then need further training, you can book a longer session out. But I think almost everyone has filled that in there. So really appreciate you guys from doing that. So obviously, if you've entered it for Buildxact, we'll give you a shout. And if you've entered it from Xact Accounting, they'll give you a shout as well. So let's dive in, and I'm just going to go right up to the top, and hopefully I'm going to cover everyone's here. So Joseph mentioned about the PO system improved for Android and Apple users to view them. I wasn't aware that there was an issue with Android or Apple users being able to view them, but guys, you can shoot me an email. I'll put my email in this chat. If you can let me know, we can maybe take that one offline. I'm not one of the tech guys, so I may or may not be able to help, but I'll do my best to find out what the issue is. Obviously, Emily said about the chat. So, Robbie, you mentioned this one earlier on about what if our suppliers are refusing to integrate with Buildxact. And look, we're not going to get everyone that wants to integrate. So one of the issues we often find is that if they integrate with us, someone at that place needs to manage it and is responsible for having live pricing integration, which that does add an extra layer of work. So some people don't necessarily want to do it. If you can, though, get some form of Excel sheet. Ultimately, it really sort of works in the same way as long as you're getting an updated Excel sheet from them. So you load that Excel sheet in a month, 2 months time, they give you another sheet, you load that back in. If there's any changes to pricing or anything like that, that's going to update inside your Buildxact file, and it will hold those items to the same item. So if a new item goes in, it overwrites this one here. If you use this item for something in multiple templates, it will update that as well. So if they don't want to integrate that, that's kind of a way around it. So is there already an established integrations to ERP or project management software? So not at the moment. There's an anonymous question there, but obviously this was before Dan kind of showed the integrations that we have with Xact Accounting there. So obviously you can use that, but not for a project management software side. In order for the zero integration, this might be a you one, Dan. In order for the zero integration to work, do we need zero chart of accounts used in an estimate to match up with Buildxact descriptions?
Yeah, it's a good question, a bit of a technical one. So let me say another read. In order for the zero use. Yeah, so essentially so if you're looking up zero, and again, once you're setting up suppliers, because once you hook up zero and Buildxact, say, I'm probably a bit more of an expert in zero, because you are a zero-based firm, you can create new suppliers in Buildxact that will automatically push across. Sorry, you can, in Buildxact will push across to zero, but then you can also pull in your chart of accounts as well that will push across to zero too. So you can map them together, and you can have as many or as little as you like. And there's a heap of help videos online that are pretty short on the Buildxact website. But short answer, yes, you do need a zero chart of accounts. Probably not in the estimate. It's just when you do flick it across to a job. So during the estimate phase, not as critical, but just think of that, that big picture downstream when you're trying to measure your profit and trying to protect your profit, that you do give that consideration as well. For example, you might have a plumber, you might have sort of split out, for a plumber, you might split out his or her materials and, labor. Just be a bit careful that, if they do send you back one invoice, you have to sort of split that in your estimate, that you do try and track that against the two lines, or maybe bundle it together and go, look, I'm just going to put it against plumbing as opposed to splitting out between material and labor. It just depends on how your chart of accounts is set up in the background, but we want to sort of align them.
Awesome, thanks, mate. So one here from Blesson, it's really around are we going to go further in depth of showing more information on the job costing screen of committed costs? At the moment on screen, I'm not sure. Look, my gut feeling is at some point it'll be in there. I don't necessarily see us going anywhere as deep as what maybe Xact Accounting with the Xact Analytics are doing, because that's a lot of work in there. But yeah, maybe some changes on individual things. But if you've ever worked with anyone in product, it's hard to get that kind of roadmap out. So yeah, not 100% sure on that one. I think we've already covered that one from Kerr. Is there a way to track expenses from on-site purchases that are not emailed through? Then can Buildxact work from an account bank feed at all? So we don't have a direct bank feed reconciliation. I do know that there was some loose discussions around maybe having the ability to code transactions and have them entered into Buildxact through kind of OCR and stuff. I don't know how far that has gone, but there was some discussions a little while ago around that. So my gut feeling is that probably eventually that would be there. But if you haven't got any receipts whatsoever, the only way you'd be able to do it is really having someone, whoever's going to make those purchases actually entering it in themselves, which if they're not taking photos and stuff of receipts, I don't know if they'd be entering in Buildxact either. But then you also may not want them to use Buildxact. So there's no, I guess, right answer on that. You need to have some way of entering that into our system. So from Ed, so all this information can be integrated after the fact into Xero. So yeah, Dan, you might want to provide more detail, but yeah, Ed, you can enter it into Buildxact. We then send that information over to Xero.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So basically, once you receive your invoice from your supplier or subcontractor, yeah, you enter the Buildxact, and then it gets pushed across to Xero, MYB, or QuickBooks as basically an accounts payable invoice ready to go. So you don't bundle up like an ABA file or anything in Buildxact, but it just pushes through the invoice along with all the details, invoice number, date, comments, etc., and it shoves it across, as well as the job number as well, which is really important for that job costing piece, especially if you do financial reporting out of those systems too.
Simon, I believe you were asking that question about does it integrate with MYOB when Dan was presenting the analytics dashboard. I don't believe you guys have any plans on doing that, Dan, do you?
Yeah, so because we're still in alpha stage at the moment, and again, we haven't started pushing this out wholesale just yet, and I'll flash up the QR code again down the track. I mean, a fair bit of demand has been around Xero, but if we do start getting a lot of interest around MYOB or anything like that, we'll consider it. I mean, alpha's done, and my, I guess, data analytics guy, he is, I guess, the next project, so we can consider that down the track too. But as it stands now in alpha, no, not at this stage, but if the demand swells, we'll absolutely look at it for sure. And yeah, Ed, saw your comment, mate. This looks amazing, Dan. Thanks for the shout out. Really appreciate it.
No, it's great. Yeah, it's a great tool. Emma, so one for you. Dan, do you work with New South Wales-based builders, or is it only Queensland?
Yeah, heaps. So even though we are based in Queensland and we sort of spruik, QBCC and all the rest of it, we have clients Australia-wide. Especially on the tax and accounting side, we are specialists in QBCC, but we do deal in tax and accounting matters as well. And we are specialists in that area. And from the CFO advisory side, less around tax and GST. Again, don't talk to me about that stuff. I'll refer you to one of my gun colleagues. But from the CFO advisory side, look, I've got clients Australia-wide, pretty much, all bar WA and the NT. So short answer, yes.
Awesome. Ed, as well, about the recording. So we will normally put this recording up on our YouTube page. You should get a link out with it as well, but it'll normally come up on our YouTube page normally the same day. So if you check later on today, it should be there. So Joseph's asked, do you set up templates for builders? This obviously to you, Dan. If so, could you send us a price list for this? So I don't know, Dan, if you guys would be the best person to reach out to from a price list, a template side of things. But Joseph, if you want to reach out for anyone because we work with a bunch of estimators that actually create templates for builders, and depending on your locations and pricing and all that kind of stuff, I would imagine they would be the better people for you to speak to. But I don't know if you want to jump in, Dan, on that. And
I assume, Joseph, unless you want to add like another comment down the bottom, I assume you're talking about, I don't know whether it's a template of Xact Analytics or whether you're talking about templates, like I guess like the recipes as well. I mean, if you are talking the dashboard, I mean, all the stuff that we do is really customizable. So if you like the Xact Analytics piece, we can custom build stuff. I mean, we have got, I guess, we are a tech-based firm, and we have got a couple of other dashboards that we have custom made for other clients and even people that aren't in the building space either. So we have done that for. I mean, as far as the templates go, I mean, did you want to touch on that at all, Julian, from a recipe perspective?
I think if you're referring to, which I think you probably are, Joseph, but again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're referring to actually a single story new build template, for example, and some of the common items and the categories and things like that they should have in, definitely reach out to our estimator partners that we have. Again, I've got my email address. I think I put it in there, did I? Yeah, at the bottom. So just reach out to me and I can pass you on to some people that can help you with that. And Josephine, you can't push from Xero to Buildxact at this stage. I'm not sure if we're going to have a two-way integration at some point. We hear kind of mixed feedback. Some people really want it, and some people also say don't touch it because you can really kind of screw up the data with that happening. Dan, there's one here from Phil. Do you have any tools on work in progress?
Yeah. So we do a fair few of these in the background as well. I mean, I sort of touched on WIP a couple of times too. I mean, WIP is really critical for any builder, just so you know where your profit's sitting month to month. What I'll do is I'll just drop down at the bottom of the chats. I'll just put it to everyone. Here is a link to our WIP for builders, and it comes with like a tool and a video and stuff as well, and just how to use it. But yeah, check it out if you get the chance, Phil. But yeah, thanks for jumping in that one.
Yeah, and David, it's not there as an add-on at this stage as like a traditional add-on that you would normally say. But yeah, it's offered by Xact Accounting. So yeah, definitely reach out to Dan and the team there if you're interested in using it.
Yeah, I'll pop up the QR code again just before we leave, guys. Just for anyone that sort of missed it before.
Maybe just stick it up there now, Dan, while we're going through it, just so people have it there.
Yeah, good idea. Let me just fire that up in the background.
Yeah. Sorry. And Dale's mentioned here, when are you guys actually going live with this?
Look, that's a really good question. I mean, we have an alpha piece and a beta piece coming up. Look, essentially, it's good to go now. I mean, we tested it with probably about 15 or 20 builders so far, gotten feedback, revamped it. We have a website that's ready to go. I mean, we've sort of been just being really careful with the rollout before we sort of mass produce this one. The reason for that is, look, we just want to keep polishing, refining. It's a pretty powerful tool, in my view, anyway. Especially with my sort of commercial hat on or CFO hat on. So look, it's ready to go now. Some builders have signed up to it currently, and it is live. But we're sort of just making the engagement, fairly intimate. So if you sort of scan the QR code, register your interest, I'll definitely get back to you within the week and take you through, I guess, a level deeper. But it's essentially live, but not mass market just yet.
Awesome. So Ed's joined the list. That's awesome, Ed. So Daniel's asked, can you import supply invoices into Buildxact? So not at this stage. It's something that I believe at some point we'll have, but again, not at this point in time at the moment. Sorry, Daniel. Emily's asked for you, Dan. Does your team supply bookkeeping services through Buildxact invoice input then across the Xero?
Our firm does do some bookkeeping work, but funnily enough, we'll generally do try and outsource the bookkeeping, or we have a preferred partner. So there's a guy that we do use in New South Wales. He's very commercial. Happy to sort of chuck his details up on this, but Don Doolan, I'll see if I can grab his contact details and chuck it up. But we do have a preferred partner down in New South Wales, and he specialises in Buildxact and another building software as well. And yeah, he can data enter this into Buildxact too. Yes, it doesn't just do AP side.
I've got his details there, Dan, so I can enter them in.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm really hoping now that I'm actually allowed to give his mobile number out. I'm assuming you won't have any issues with me passing it on if someone's going to call him. So Emily, if you're still on the call, Don's there.
There he is.
Yeah, so Don, there's your mobile number on screen. Hopefully I've got that right. Josephine, I Buildxact. Where do you set up the chart of accounts in the software? So Dan, might be one for you. You're better at the accounting side than I am.
Yeah, so it's less around the chart. So basically, once you have the integration set up and you're sort of testing the knowledge here a little bit, once you do have the integration set up, it should be a down drop arrow when you do set up your supplier in the background. But if you don't mind, send me an email directly, just danielw@xactaccounting.com.au, and I might just give you a bit more of a tailored response back. I just can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, once the integration's set up, obviously Buildxact fishes data out of Xero, and there are a lot more options when you go to enter the invoices in. Send me an email and I'll send you a couple of screenshots and tips on that one. I'll make sure I get back to you today on that.
Awesome, thanks. I think that was everything. Awesome, Josephine. So Josephine, are you using Buildxact at the moment, and you're looking at going the step further and using Xact Analytics, or is it? I don't know.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, I'm just very new. Yes, so Josephine, definitely. Definitely speak to Dan, and then just make sure that if you are new on the system, just make sure you're getting your training. So a lot of people don't know you get there's live webinars on different parts of the software. There's also one-on-one training you can have as well. So definitely make use of that because it is entirely free. You know, local help and support and stuff as well there. So definitely make use of that. I think that's everything. Oh, it just been, yeah, New Zealand, yeah. So the team is based in Australia. I think they're making sure I'm not missing anyone. Yeah, awesome. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll probably wrap it up there, Dan. Thanks for joining, everyone. Obviously, hopefully you've got something out of that today. You know, we bridge the gap massively in terms of giving builders the ability to, you know, estimate more accurately, quote, manage your projects through schedules, etc. And then, yeah, from there, manage your costs. And then with Xact Analytics, obviously that takes it to the next level for, you know, for those that are, you know, really wanting more depth out of that reporting. And we've got, for everyone there, we've got the list of, you know, Xact Accounting will reach out to you guys, and then the Buildxact team will reach out to you guys that have asked for Buildxact to do so. So I think that's pretty much it. Let's make sure one last check. Emma, you've got your hand raised. Are you able to pop the chat? Oh, maybe not anymore. Maybe that was a mistake. I'll just double check to make sure before I end this in case Emma had a question there. No, maybe it was a mistake, misclick. But yeah, guys, thanks for joining. Obviously, thanks, Dan. You covered the majority of that. So yeah, it was great to get an insight from someone whose job is literally the profit part of it, because we know at the moment that, you know, it's a bit of a worry for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, that's great, Julian. Again, thanks to everyone that attended. You have all of our details. You know, Xact Analytics is the start. You know, Buildxact is a great bit of software for the quoting and the transparency, especially looking down the CFO advisory lens. But if you go away, you know, definitely link up Buildxact and just micro measure what's going on in your business. I just can't stress that enough. Otherwise, that's a wrap. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and if you haven't used us yet, then if you do look at a trial or something, just make sure you've referenced that you've heard of us from the webinar as well. That'd be awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
See you
guys.
Bye.